Very warm welcome, everyone. Today it's my very great pleasure to welcome a great mate of mine and a great pilot, a mate of all pilots, in fact, Captain Andrew Marshall, President of the Australian and International Pilots Association. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you, my friend?
I'm well. It's a busy time, but we're getting through the work as we need to, and getting things done. So, thank you for asking.
So I think we might take a step backwards. What the heck are we doing here? One, sitting around a table, and two, with you being the AIPA President. How did all this come about, my friend?
Oh, well, I ask myself the same question, how all this came about. But look, as many people have said before, no one aspires to this position. I think you just sort of you grow into it, or it comes along at a time in your life where you have the opportunity to give a bit back to the pilot body. So as far as how I got here, well, I obviously ran for election and was elected by a committee of my peers. So as far as why we're here, I came back onto committee having had a long hiatus. As you're well aware, you and I left about the same time in 2005 or 6 after the last EBA 6, I think we'd finished, and then we moved on. And I just felt I had a bit more to give at the end of my career. You know, I'm 56 now. I'm sort of trying to get myself set up so that I can choose my retirement date that may not actually be associated with turning 65. So I just thought I'll go back in and give a little bit more back before I retire into the greener pastures. So that's how I got here.
Well, we've been here, I don't know, maybe 100 days, and I think it's a little bit more than I'll give a little bit back, isn't it? So most people may not know you. I mean, you've been a great mate of mine for a long time. So your Qantas journey, tell us about that. It certainly didn't start as a Qantas pilot, did it?
No. It's been a good career. It's been exposure to a big part of the Qantas family. So my first job was actually in the freight shed in Brisbane. I got the background to that is I did a lot of rowing, stillwater rowing, when I left school, and continued representing Queensland in various crews throughout the time until I turned about 21. And my coach at the time in the Queensland Youth 8 that I'd kept in contact after that period was a man called Tom Jack. And Tom was what they called the resources controller in the cargo terminal at Brisbane International Airport for Qantas. And I was working for the Commonwealth Bank at the time, who were very good to me and actually placed me at the University of Queensland, where the rowing shed was that I trained out of. So but I decided that wasn't necessarily the career I wanted, and I reached out to Tom and asked him if he had a job, and sure enough, on August 1989, which is a pretty illustrious date for pilots,
absolutely,
being the start of the pilots' dispute or thereabouts, I started in the cargo shed in Brisbane International Terminal, and a couple of years later, a bunch of my mates from the cargo division came down to Sydney to start up the freight reservations and sales section on QCC 6. So we were one of the first groups in there. So they centralised all the reservations and sales for cargo, and that was so centralised into Sydney. They used to have them in all the cargo terminals in all the states, but they decided to centralise that. So there's about 7 or 8 of us moved down from Brisbane to help set that up. And then, a few years later, I got a bit restless again, and a couple of mates of mine were recruiting internally for long-haul cabin crew, and they applied for the job, and I sort of wondered why they'd want to go and do that. And one of them happened to be a scheduler, and he said, it's a pretty good job, so I'll have a crack. And so I applied for that, and I got that.
We'll just clarify that. Sorry, you applied for which job?
A long-haul cabin crew.
A flight attendant.
Flight attendant, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Continue with the
Clear?
story. Yeah, I'm clear now.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So I did, I had a couple of years there. That's where I met my now wife as training as cabin crew. Her brother many people will know a TRE on the 7-8, Peter Thompson, is he was a second officer at the time on the 747 or 744. I'm not sure which at the time, but we became mates and we did a bit of flying, and then out at Camden, and then I moved back to Queensland, commuted as a flight attendant, and started my pilot licence training at a place called Gill Lates, which is a school in Archerfield. And I got up to private pilot level there, and then Peter Thompson, rang me one day and said they've got a cadetship happening. Why don't you apply? So I thought, nothing to lose. So I applied for that, and was successful in that in 95, and then so in October 95 I moved to Adelaide and to Parafield, and started as a Qantas cadet down in Parafield.
But the big thing about your cadetship was you had to pay for it, didn't you?
It was the first of what they called the self-funded. So I had to take my father to the bank and convince them that I was a good risk for a $100,000 loan and no job, which back in 1995 was it's a lot of money now, but it was certainly a lot of money back then.
And having known you a while, I'm pretty sure you didn't have any saving in 1995.
Not a lot.
Yeah, okay.
Not a lot.
So it was a massive loan.
I borrowed a lot.
Yeah, so $100,000.
It was a big ask, but I could certainly see the benefits in the career, and it was something that stage that I'd become pretty passionate about. So I just thought, let's have a crack, and so away we went, and graduated there in November 96, and started a week later in Sydney on the 747-400 as a second officer in Qantas. So
fantastic.
And then from there, 76 FO, where you and I met. Then got rinned off that, but I had probably the best rin in history, where I was actually reduction in numbers to a first officer on the 380, which was a very good outcome for about 15 of us. The other 15 became second officers, so they didn't get as good an outcome, obviously. And then did my command on the 737, and now I'm back on the A330 based out of Sydney. So that's my Qantas career thus far.
That brings us here. So thinking about it all, when we sat on my back lawn trying to talk you out of or discouraging each other to get involved again, is the job of being the AIPA President what we thought about it was going to be like sitting on my back lawn?
I don't think anyone can actually think about what it's like, because you don't know what every day is going to bring.
Yeah.
And what I find is Monday generally sets up your week. So whatever's happened over the weekend or whatever's sort of popped up, that can really take over the rest of your week, depending on how big an issue it is. So it's many and varied. I'm certainly trying to step away from the hands-on direct involvement in a lot of the stuff that goes on. I want the office to be able to be run regardless of whether I'm there or not, and it functions, and I want the issues to be dealt with. You always need a subject matter expert on the premises or on the phone, because there is a lot of stuff that we only we know because we live it. So yeah, look, I'm trying more to establish the relationships that I think AIPA needs in order to be able to get the best results and best outcome for the pilot body. So, take a big picture strategic approach to the organisation. As I said, we're developing a new website, developing a new app. What goes into those, letting our wonderful employees run those projects, but providing our strategic input as an executive into those projects as to what's required. So look, and as I say, it's many and varied. So I couldn't have guessed from day one what it was going to be like. Yeah. It's been a baptism of fire, to be quite honest with you. But I think we're now, we're in the cruise phase a little bit now. We do have a lot of the long haul EAs, obviously, taking up a lot of time and a lot of space, and it needs to. That's our biggest challenge, and obviously our biggest contract as well. So it's getting a lot of time.
Before we dive into those big meaty issues that everyone's very keen to hear about, So you had some Qantas grounding. Were you a good student at school? There is a point to this question, so okay, we won't answer that.
Okay, here we go.
So then,
no, is the answer to that. School and I were not fond of each other.
So you had a mutual agreement to pass time together, and
I had a fantastic time.
Yeah, I
must say, and I made lifelong friends as we do, and you know, I set myself up for my sporting career, which. But my academic career was not as brilliant as my sporting career. So.
Well, then how the heck did you go and get yourself an Executive MBA? What drove that decision? I mean, I got a fair idea, but most people wouldn't. I mean, that's not something you make lightly. Because
I did it for me, but I also wanted to understand better how business ran and be able to see through the mist. So the thing that an Executive MBA teaches you is to look through what you're being presented and look for the facts behind it. So, I didn't do very well. It was always a bit of a problem for me how poorly I did at school. And so I thought, well, the only way to get that monkey off my back is go and get some education. So I thought I'd have our General Counsel at AIPA previously at the time, Alana Stark, had been through UTS, through the EMBA program. Anton Hermans ran the program, and Anton was a bit of an aviation tragic. So that was really my leg into it. Was that there at the end of the keystone subject was a global strategic thinking subject, which involved a tour of Airbus and a tour of Maurice Chandon. So aeroplanes and alcohol were the highlights of Antoine's life. So I sort of tapped into that a little bit and. Said that I could help facilitate the tour of the Airbus factory and the A380 production line at the time. So, I managed to convince them that I was a good risk to take onto the program and self-funded myself onto that.
So for all our young listeners and watchers, there's an absolute point showing that school's not for everyone. I wasn't a particularly good student either, but through plenty of hard work and some tenacity, you can just about achieve anything. No one said it's easy, but it's possible, isn't it?
No, look, and I've had many mentors in life, but one of them always said never stop learning. And you never listen to your parents, but that's never stop learning. There's always something to be learned.
Well, when we were 20, we thought we knew as much as our parents, but when you get to 30, you're surprised how much they learned over the last 10 years, aren't they? So,
exactly.
Yeah, we take it for granted. So there is a point to that story showing that not only did Andrew work in 3 massive departments in Qantas, he went and got some education to back up what he was talking about. So everyone's pretty keen, I guess, to get into some meaty topics. Short-haul EA's finally put to bed. We're starting to implement now some of the fantastic structural changes.
Yeah, well, that'll be, the implementation is the thing that will be closely watched now. And I know that Captain Steve Cornell, who's the short-haul rep, is very across that and the need to make sure that the implementation schedule is met. So, I think, over the next couple of years, I think the short-haul pilots will definitely start to see the benefits of that deal. I know, having worked there for 4 years, that there were things that were my bugbears, and this EA certainly addressed those. So it'll be interesting to see how the benefits start to flow through and how they're viewed by the pilot body. So having said that, of course, 2027, I think they're back in the room. So
it's not far away.
Not far away, is it? Yeah, time flies.
Before we get to long haul, we'll talk about a few of the other things. The National Jet are very excited to have a great cohort of pilots joining AIPA recently with our rule change.
Yeah, and a great outcome, and a credit to our employees in that they've managed to, promote the benefits that AIPA brings to industrial organisation as far as representing pilots throughout Australia. So. I think we were sort of expecting about half of the membership that we've got. So to get what the membership that we've got and it's growing is a fantastic result. So I look forward to working closely with them and providing the resources and the skills that AIPA's got to help them get the best deal that they can come bargaining time, which starts at the end of this year, I believe. So it won't be far away either.
It's a very warm welcome for the National Jet members. issues in the West, IBD, it's ongoing network.
Well, we got briefed about that yesterday, as you know, at committee, and you know, it's as Matt Warburton, our head of legal and IR, always says, once you put your bargaining in the hands of a third party, you lose control. So you know, they are where they are. It's now an extended process, which has been further, I guess, complicated by the decision out of Adelaide with the standby. So that's delayed it even further. But you know, there's a group of pilots that haven't had a pay rise since 2018, and now they're waiting still for a pay rise. So not the way that I've been mentored in industrial relations. You know, negotiated outcome for mine is always the best outcome. Stay in the room, get a deal. And then, you know, at least you have some certainty. You know, there's everyone's just waiting now for a full bench of the Fair Work Commission to determine their working lives for the next however many years. So, and they've lost all control. So that's not a positive outcome for me, and not one that I'd like to see us go down.
And a long time between pay rises with no guarantees. Everything's up at stake, isn't it?
Everything's at risk. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's throwing a deck of cards in the air and seeing how they fall. In a sense, like there are some, you know, certainties with agreed items, but you never know the outcome because you're not in control of it. So yeah, that's not a situation I want to see us in. Absolutely.
And Jetstar, we've just started negotiations in Melbourne with our Jetstar cohort.
Yeah, and the team's prepared very well using the in-house resources again. It's good to see the way they worked. I watched them work a couple of weeks ago in the office for 3 days, building up to this point, starting negotiations. I know they've been working for 12 months prior, gathering the information and doing the surveys and bits and pieces that they require to you know, be able to speak on behalf of their members. Which they've done fantastically in their preparation. So to see them come together as a tight-knit group, and the really good bit with that was that the long-haul Qantas mainline long-haul team was in the office at the same time, and there was I took them, both teams, out to dinner one night to sort of make sure that we mixed and shared ideas. And the long-haul guys would go into the room to offer advice on some areas that they mightn't have thought of when it came to things that you can put in your contract that are beneficial to the pilot body, but and provide a pay rise without necessarily a headline rate increase. So. Yeah, look, there's and that's the benefit of being able to share the information between the different groups.
So you live here in New South Wales, but grew up in Queensland. So obviously you're a New South Wales Blues supporter. Would you like to have a prediction on the State of Origin result?
Well, your premise is wrong for a start.
You did grow up in Queensland.
Well, that's State of Origin though. So yeah, okay. on an Origin basis, I'm not from New South Wales.
So that makes you a Queensland supporter.
That's correct. Does it? Andrew, you're well aware of that.
I am aware of that.
That's
so
right.
A bold prediction now on the State of Origin results. I think that members and listeners and viewers would be very keen to look back at this and see how accurate your prediction's going to
be. Do you?
Yeah.
I'll be very surprised if this bit survives the cutting floor. But,
if you keep talking like that, it won't. Come on, I want a prediction on State of Origin.
2-1 Queensland.
Do I get any head points start?
Every year you hit me up for a start, so that shows a lack of confidence in your team. And
no, I think
I'd like to see you come into it more confident.
No, so, it's just proving you
offer me a point
you
start. No, you should offer me a point
start.
No,
I don't need to.
You should.
2-1 Queensland? Okay, we'll hold you to that.
Okay, well, you and I will be at the third game, so we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room at the moment amongst all long-haul pilots, the long-haul EA. It's pretty bruising, isn't it, at the moment?
It's a long process. It's a long process. Having said that, I've done 4 EAs and an MOU process, which was a little bit quicker, but I don't think I've done an EA that's taken less than 18 months from memory. So as you're well aware, you know, from the time we were on COM previously in the early 2000s, I spent the entire time in negotiations. So it's a lengthy process. I'd like to see that changed in the future, but it requires a commitment from both parties to look at it and workshop the problems, not just take ideological positions, which I think is a bit of a hamper to or hindrance. Sorry, it's a hindrance to progressing things. But so we've been going for 12 months, and as I said to the committee yesterday, the long-haul EA negotiations are just about to commence. So, we've finally got to the point where we can start to actually get serious at the table. And it's a shame it takes this long, but it does. And I hope to, over the next 18 months to 2 years, work with the senior management within the organisations to change the way that these things are approached to be a more less combative, more working together type arrangement to solve mutual problems for win-win outcomes rather than a combative approach.
Should we take the Band-Aid off the current contract we've got? Do you just want to remind our listeners and viewers how we ended up with the EBA or the EA we're sitting at now? Because a lot of pilots weren't on the premises at the time, and most of us have actually forgotten how the last contract came about. We just remember voting for it, but we don't actually... A lot of it gets blurred, I guess. 4 years down the track, we forget what happened when we were signing the last EA.
So I'll preface by saying that I wasn't on committee at the time and I wasn't involved in the bargaining process, but I've certainly spoken to people who were, and this is my understanding, not so take it at that there was a cohort of people external to Qantas who were willing to come in and fly on a contract basis or whatever that I believe was potentially being set up by a former chief pilot of Qantas. And so under the threat of that, I think negotiations broke down and it got to the point where the deal was put to the pilots directly by the company without the support of AIPA or the endorsement of AIPA.
And of course we had the big C on the horizon as well, didn't we?
Well, COVID was about to kick off, and then of course we all our careers were terminated effective immediately.
We only ever work on behalf of our members, don't we? We make no decisions. No, that's not true either. We make decisions, but it's always with members' number one priority. That's the first thing that comes in any decision. Is this appropriate for our membership, isn't it?
Well, because they have the final say. Yeah. So I've never taken a deal anywhere that I didn't think the members would accept. So all of the EAs that I've been involved in previously, we never took it to committee unless we believed that we had the support of committee, and we never took it to the pilots unless we believed that we had the support of the pilots. And all of the votes were, in those days, quite successful. You'll always have a protest vote.
Yeah,
you'll always have that. There's nothing you can do to get away from that. But if you can explain it sensibly, and you can explain the value that it brings, and you can explain, the in some cases the lifestyle improvements or the remuneration benefits that they bring to the pilots, then that's you're going a long way to being able to explain the deal. I don't like this term sell deals. The deal should sell itself.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, you should just have to explain it, and the pilot should understand it and see that the value is there. So,
do you think, last time 20 years around, the communication wasn't as instantaneous as it is now? Do you think this now communication where we can communicate to members immediately, is that a help or a hindrance, do you think? Is there much more expectation where people want to know but they don't actually know what they want to know, they just want to know? So if they feel like they're devoid of information, they feel like they've been left out, or in fact, it's only because we're so used to the 24-hour news cycle and we get 5 million FSOs every week and there's always something going on. Do you think that we've lost that ability to be patient and trust those people we put in these positions and trust the process? And do you think the now communications affected our trust or our people's ability to be patient?
Some people. But I think in this instance, we're hearing from a lot of our members at the moment because we're getting positive feedback on what we're doing. But it's not a search for more information. It's more a feedback on the fact that we are providing the information. you can't negotiate an EA with a committee of 40, and you can't negotiate an EA with a membership of 1,600 long-haul pilots. It just doesn't work. So there has to be a degree of trust in the association and the people doing the bargaining that they're doing the right thing. But you can't negotiate in public either. So, we can say, the team can say as much as they can without jeopardising the position of the bargaining, because once you say something publicly, people become wedded to it, and it's very difficult to back away from that position if you have to. So as far as instantaneous communications, I guess, there's some people that require that, but I think the majority of our members are quite happy with the level of comms that they're getting. I don't think they need instantaneous responses to blogs or any of these forums that are around. I will say that I will correct falsehoods. I won't let falsehoods get a run. So that might be a bit of a challenge, when we get to when the deal is done. But look, as far as the communication side of it, I think we're actually on the numbers at the moment with what we're doing. But
well, as I now know and having experienced and seen, a 2-paragraph update can take hours and hours to. We're very careful with what we say and how we say it, and there's a lot of work just involved in getting simple, well, not simple, but short comms down, isn't there? It's just
communications is a difficult area, which is why we employ professional people
absolutely.
to handle it on our behalf. So, we provide the emotion and the sentiment and the input, but we need people capable of turning that into a professional product for the membership rather than just a rant on a page.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been to AIPA recently, so got to catch up, or your first introduction to a lot of our international and global colleagues. Some of the themes come out of that. I think a pretty hot topic at the moment is RCO, reduced crew operations. Want to share how you feel about that?
Yeah, well, there's two parts to that. There's what they call EMCO, which is an extended minimum crew operation. And
so what's that, going as far as you can, 2-pilot or something?
On the basis that one of the pilots leaves the flight deck to rest, and then you have extended flight time limitations because you're achieving in-flight rest. So,
wow.
So you leave one pilot on the flight deck on their own. And then that feeds into reduced crew operations, which is ultimately the same sort of scenario where you've got one pilot on the flight deck during the cruise phase. So those are that's an idea currently being assessed by EASA, which is the regulator in Europe. They've got a rule making notice out as to what they're looking at with that. Primarily being pursued by Airbus and Dassault. Two French companies to initially with the A350 freighter, just to enable what they see as extended range operations with a 2-crew complement. So, but that's I'd be more than happy to bring Captain Kevin Sullivan in to talk about
what
the issues with having minimum crew on the flight deck. And for those that don't know, Kevin was the captain of QF72, which had a significant event when the in-flight computers went a bit haywire off Learmonth about a decade ago, I think. I can't think of the time frame, but
probably more than that now.
Probably more, yeah.
And Jono or Matt Hicks or any of those guys.
Well, yeah, we've had plenty of incidents. What I find amazing about this is I've spent all my career having had, was cockpit resource management sort of, forced into us, and then it became crew resource management, as you know, and how to get 2 pilots to work together and to work as a team. And now there's this proposal to remove one of the pilots from the flight deck, which is completely contrary to what it is that we've been doing as far as enhancing safety. This is a concept that actually they talk about an equivalence of safety. Well, I don't think that in aviation we look for equivalences. I think we look for betterment.
Improvement of not equaling what we had.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's purely driven on a cost basis, right? It's just it's purely a financial decision. It's got nothing to do with enhancing or increasing safety. So that'll be a focus of mine. I've got a panel in August at a convention to talk about that. And it's more about the introduction of technology in aviation, but this is one technology that I think everyone needs to be aware of and everyone needs to talk about. That it's certainly a reduction in the safety levels.
And what have you been commenting to? Well-trained, well-rested, suitably qualified pilots on the flight deck?
Yeah, well, Safety Starts With Two is a campaign by the American carriers. The Europeans have One Means None. So there's two campaigns running currently around the world. Safety Starts With Two is two well-trained, well-rested pilots on the flight deck at all times. So, obviously within reason of having rest breaks for personal rest, bathroom breaks. But so the overwhelming message is we, with the pilot associations around the world, which represent 144,000 airline pilots, recently out of that International Federation conference, put a conference statement out saying that we don't support this, obviously the reduced crew operations or the introduction of EMCO. So, that's, and that's our position.
Obviously, I'm incredibly proud to be an AIPA member and a part of the committee, and I wear it on my sleeve and I wear it on my heart. Do you want to talk to me about how you feel the importance of a Qantas Group airline union and sole representation, what that means to us?
Sure. Look, we've currently got a situation where we have, in all of the Qantas Group entities that we represent, there's the ability for multiple parties to get involved in the representation of pilots. But for mine, from what I've seen over the years, the strength in negotiations comes through the strength of numbers. So, as I say to all of the new hires that I talk to when they come to the AIPA office for introduction, the reason why our contracts are the leading contracts in the country is because for 44 years, the Qantas mainline pilots have been united as one group, and that gives us enormous bargaining power. Given that the union membership throughout Australia sits at around 15% of the workforce. But in order to maintain our industrial relevance and strength, I think the idea is that you unite people under one body. And for mine, if you're in the Qantas Group, you join the Qantas Group Pilots Union, and that's AIPA. I believe we have industry-leading contracts for a reason, and that's because we're united and we're strong, and we are at the coalface. We're by pilots for pilots, so we understand the issues because they're our daily life, and we understand the ways to address them because we work in that industry and we work every day facing the challenges. So when an issue becomes a problem for the employer and the union, we can sit down sensibly and have a discussion about how to solve it most times.
Well, we've had a lot of skin in the game, but probably not as much skin now, getting towards the end of our careers. So why are you still around? I mean, you spoke about it briefly when you started. I give my reason why I am. When we started at AIPA, we both had a mentor that was tremendous for us at growing as people and as AIPA representatives and pilots as well. But he always said, we have to leave the place in a better condition than we found it. So that's part of my reason to be back here being involved, because I have that deep sense of it's our duty to leave AIPA and our contracts better than when we joined. So tell us about why. You've touched on it briefly, but that, there's got to be something deeper than, I had some time and, I thought I had a bit more.
Well, I didn't really have time. I had a beautiful life that I must have thought that I needed something else. But look, as I said, it's my chance to give back now that I've spent all of my career, 29 years, coming on 30 years next year, as a pilot within Qantas Mainline, to apply what I've learnt over that time in hopefully the betterment of the lives of those following, like your daughter, who's joined, who's got a very long career, and hopefully a very long and successful career ahead of her. So there is a sense of wanting to leave it certainly a better place than we found it, and ensuring that AIPA as an organisation continues to be well run, well funded, well respected, and well resourced, and in that way we can provide the services to the members that the members require. So,
do you remember when we used to sit over at Botany around that table, and we'd look at some of our more experienced com members and comment to ourselves about, have a look at this guy, would you? Do you feel like that now, like we're
the old blokes in the room, like the two Muppets on the balcony? Is that what you're saying?
How did that happen? I mean, I can 20 years.
We got old, Andrew, which is, let me tell you, that's a blessing.
It is a blessing, but where did the time now? We're literally those old blokes from the Muppets, aren't we?
It goes in a blink of an eye, doesn't it?
In a heartbeat. I look at myself in the mirror and I shock myself sometimes. One, for good reasons, but mostly for...
No, but looking at you across the table, I understand why you have concerns when you look at yourself.
Thank you. Well, how did that happen? Tell us, how did we go from being those kids in the corner to now we're sitting front and centre?
Well, here we are. We're lucky. I've got plenty of mates who are not with us anymore.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We're lucky.
Can you give some advice to the young you and I now, in retrospect, that we probably should have listened to at the time?
Yep. Don't invest in small cap mining stocks.
Yeah, I didn't do that. Thank you. I missed out on that one.
Be careful when the old bloke says to you, "This is a great investment." It's not. Get good advice. Get a good mentor, and get good people around you that you can rely on to tell you the truth, because you're going to need it. And if you're starting off in your career, take the time to learn as much as you can about everything. So, it's the most rewarding thing in our job, I think, is when you actually feel like you've it's almost like that sim feeling where you've studied and you're right up to speed. And I think a lot of us hardly ever feel that capability.
Absolutely.
When you first check out, and all the books and all the airplane, everything else, but you just don't know the operational side of it. So about 6 months later, you've probably forgotten half the books. And so, just keep working at it. Keep working at it. Make yourself, a better person, a better pilot each and every day.
A two-part question. Do you still enjoy the flying job?
I do. I just did my first sort of overnight run for a while. I try and do the daylight stuff if I can, which helps with the work, getting back into the office and work, because the days that I'm not flying, I'm in the office. So the long overnight stuff, I'm not a good sleeper on an aeroplane, so I struggle with that a little bit. But but the flying side of it, I look out the window and in amazement at the things we get to see in our 900 kilometre an hour office. So
it's great. I mean, here we're sitting still. It's a great view, but our view changes every time you look at the windscreen. Yeah. So the second part, are you enjoying the job being the AIPA President?
Look, I'm settling into it. Am I enjoying it? Yeah, I am. We've got a good. I've enjoyed the challenges that I've faced so far, and the way that we've come through it. We've got a very, very strong executive team. I've got very good support around me, and I think that we're building a good team, and particularly with our employees as well.
Absolutely.
I think we're building a culture that we can be proud of. So. And that's important to me. Cultural engagement, and the engagement of the staff in the outcomes is very important to me. That they feel valued, and they feel recognised for the effort that they bring to the table. So that's something that I want to make sure is a continuing focus.
Andrew, we're just about out of time. I could sit here and speak for hours about stuff, which we normally do, but normally it's just stuff. So I certainly hope the membership, the greater aviation community, our listeners and viewers had a chance to get to know you a little better. See that even though you do wear a suit very well, you're a thoroughly decent friend. And, of course, a great friend of mine, a great friend to all pilots. And it's been my great pleasure to have Captain Andrew Marshall, AIPA President, with us today.
Thanks, Andrew. It's been a pleasure to be here.